Denny finally apologizes, and NASCAR finally acknowledges the Denny Hamlin Joey Logano incident. Coming up next. What is going on, everyone? Hope you're having a good Thursday. In case you missed it, Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin 2 weeks ago had an incident on pit road where Denny Hamlin came out of his pits and ran over Ryan Flores' foot. He's got a sprained MCL. He was able to continue his duties for Joey Logano at St. Louis the next week. So even though he was injured, he was still able to keep doing his job. But it was a dangerous situation, so before we go any further, let's look at what those two had to say about it. This article from NASCAR.com. Denny Hamlin said, Logano chose to pit behind me. He shouldn't have picked the number 2 stall. You have to know if you run well, you're going to have guys going around you. I will always try to be respectful when I'm coming around someone. Certainly, I try to give them room, but again, he was running a little better than I was at the time, and I had to keep going around him. Again, he chose the second stall. When you choose to put yourself around cars you think are going to go fast, you open yourself up to stuff like that happening. Joey Logano would go on to talk to Bob Pockrass, and here's what he had to say.
We changed the way we did our pit stop to try to allow the 11 to not clip our guys. Right? The carriers get out there pretty far. We brought the tires around the back, knowing that's an issue. And the changer's down on the ground with his back to a car and gets his heels run over. For one, I don't think there's any reason for it because he had an opening out. So I think that's just a dirty move. But the facts are, I think there needs to be a penalty for it. There needs to be a rule made for it to protect our pit crew. Right? I mean, I think maybe if you're outside your box, you're on your own. I get that. But I think if you're inside your box, you're in your house, you should be protected in your home.
So you can see there, Joey Logano called it a dirty move. He said they modified their pit stops to avoid that kind of thing. He did acknowledge that sometimes there is some gamesmanship where you go wide on your pit stops to sort of block a guy in. So he acknowledged that that does happen, that it does happen both ways, but he said that this time that they weren't doing that. They had modified their pit stop and they had stayed inside their pit box, and they feel like when you're in your pit box, you should be safe. And if somebody hits one of your guys inside your own pit box, that should be a penalty. And, he called Denny Hamlin basically a dirty driver on pit road, and it looked like things were really going to escalate. Because back to that NASCAR article, Denny Hamlin's response to that was, I think the thing is, these guys are trying to swing super wide. I'm sure he has hit pit crew guys before, but I never want to take a swipe at a guy. They swing wide now to get in position, and this is a product of it. So it looked like Denny Hamlin was not going to take any type of responsibility. Now I finally had got a chance to look at the video, and all the guys stayed super tight to the car. They hadn't swung wide and all that, and I was about to basically just have to call Denny Hamlin out. But Saturday before the Xfinity race, Denny Hamlin finally relented and apologized and took the blame. Here's what he had to say. 4 hours after the video of Hamlin's interview was shared on Twitter, the driver himself quote tweeted it and wrote, I have since reviewed the video. I was wrong. Definitely my fault. I cut in the 22 box way too far. So that was a good ending to that. Denny basically needed to own that for sure, because I don't think he did it on purpose, but he definitely drove way too deep into the 22's box. And for two guys that have had a lot of history with each other, it was actually cool to see them actually agree on something and Denny just basically take the blame. And NASCAR has actually come out and said that they're going to start policing that a lot tighter to keep these guys safe. Let's see what NASCAR had to say. Per Bob Pockrass on Twitter, NASCAR says rule, a safety violation may be imposed for any action or omission by a competitor or vehicle that creates an unsafe environment or poses a threat to the safety of the competitors as determined by NASCAR. Applies if driver drives through the box during another team's pit stop. So that is good to see. That was a big concern of not only me, but I know a lot of the people in the comments wanted me to address this. I was waiting basically until NASCAR said something, and I was getting kind of concerned that NASCAR was not going to address this at all, because sometimes NASCAR does that. They might say something in the drivers' meeting, but they hadn't come out publicly and said anything. But it's good that they came out publicly and said something, and they are taking a strong stance on safety, and that is great news. I am glad that they're trying to keep these guys safe on pit road. Because just to be totally honest, the few times I've had to make pit stops, man, it's sketchy out there. They don't pay these guys enough. There's not enough money in the world you can pay these guys to make these pit stops. So keeping them safe is definitely a priority. All right, that is all I've got for you today. If you made it this far, please feel free to subscribe. We just went over 6,000, and Tuesday we're doing another live stream, so get your questions ready. Whatever you want to talk about Tuesday, we will go live and talk about it. And thank you guys so much for hitting 6,000. Man, like, this is crazy, crazy, crazy. But if you got a comment, a question about anything here, leave it down in the comments down below. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.